Imagine an emperor, revered as a living god, whose 44-year reign ended not in a glorious death, but in silent betrayal and a macabre fate. What you are about to discover on Haile Selassie will shatter everything you thought you knew about power, legacy, and the true cost of leadership. Haile Selassie, the last emperor of Ethiopia, was far more than just a monarch. He was a titan on the world stage, a visionary for African unity, and yet, his millennia-old empire crumbled before his very eyes. But the true reasons behind his downfall are far darker and more complex than official history dares to tell. Do you believe you know the story of Ethiopia? Do you think its decline was inevitable? Prepare to question everything you thought you understood, because behind the imperial grandeur and Pan-African speeches lie fatal decisions, political betrayals, and a devastating famine that sealed the destiny of a man and a nation. This isn't just history, it's a cautionary tale for our times. In the next few minutes, we will delve into the hidden chambers of his reign, from his prophetic speech at the League of Nations to the controversial annexation of Eritrea and the secret maneuvers with global superpowers. And most importantly, we will uncover the chilling truth about his end that was long suppressed and deliberately obscured. Stay with us, because the full picture is far more shocking than you can imagine. Born at Lee Tafari Makonnen in 1892, his early life was steeped in the ancient traditions of the Ethiopian Empire. He was a descendant of the Solomonic dynasty, said to trace its lineage all the way back to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. From a young age, Tafari displayed an astute political mind, rising through the ranks to become regent plenipotentiary under Empress Zuditu. He was a modernizer, pushing for reforms in education, infrastructure, and the military, often against fierce resistance from conservative factions. But what was the true cost of this modernization? His coronation as Emperor Haile Selassie I in 1930 was a spectacle of ancient ritual and global significance. As King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, he embodied the spiritual and temporal authority of Ethiopia. For the Rastafari movement, he was, and remains, a divine figure, the returned Messiah. Yet, even as he ascended to this almost mythical status, the seeds of future conflict were already being sown. Perhaps his most iconic moment came in 1936, when he stood before the League of Nations in Geneva, pleading for intervention against Mussolini's fascist Italy, which had invaded Ethiopia. His impassioned speech, warning that it is us today, it will be you tomorrow, was a chilling prophecy. The world, largely, turned a deaf ear, and Ethiopia fell under Italian occupation. Selassie was forced into exile, a profound humiliation for a man who represented the unbroken sovereignty of Africa. After World War II, Selassie returned, leading the charge for Ethiopia's reconstruction and reasserting its independence. He became a towering figure in the Pan-African movement, playing a pivotal role in the formation of the Organization of African Unity, or OAU, in 1963, and serving as its very first chairman. He championed African liberation and unity, becoming a beacon of hope for newly independent nations. Yet, the paradox of his leadership was about to unfold. But beneath the veneer of international prestige, cracks were forming within his empire. His autocratic rule, while bringing stability, stifled dissent. The controversial annexation of Eritrea in 1962, dissolving its federation with Ethiopia, ignited a brutal separatist war that would bleed the nation for decades. Critics pointed to his suppression of rebellions and the slow pace of internal reforms. The most devastating blow to his legitimacy came with the Wallow famine of 1972 to 1973, as hundreds of thousands starved in the northern provinces. The imperial government's response was perceived as slow and indifferent. The shocking revelation that Ethiopia continued to export grain during the crisis further eroded public trust. This stark contrast between imperial opulence and widespread suffering fueled popular discontent and solidified the image of a regime out of touch with its people. Simultaneously, Ethiopia's external alliances began to unravel. The strategic importance of the US Cagnu station in Eritrea, a vital Cold War intelligence hub, diminished with advancements in satellite technology. The US began scaling back its aid and presence, leaving Selassie vulnerable. His attempts to secure support from the Soviet Union were met with a lukewarm reception. As Moscow prioritized its relationship with Somalia, the emperor, once a master diplomat, found himself increasingly isolated on the global stage. The year 1974 marked the beginning of the end. A series of mutinies within the military, sparked by grievances over pay and conditions famously. A broken water pump for soldiers quickly escalated into widespread protests. Teachers, taxi drivers, and students joined the chorus of discontent. A shadowy military group known as the Derg emerged, initially without a clear agenda, but rapidly gaining momentum as the voice of the people's anger. Selassie's attempts at reform were too little, too late. His authority, once absolute, was crumbling. On September 12, 1974, members of the Derg entered the Jubilee Palace and formally deposed Emperor Haile Selassie. The 3,000-year-old Solomonic dynasty came to an ignominious end. He was escorted out through a side door, taken to a military barracks, and imprisoned. The Derg dissolved parliament, suspended the constitution, and declared Ethiopia a Marxist-Leninist state. The world watched as a living legend was reduced to a prisoner. His death, on August 27, 1975, was officially attributed to natural causes. However, later revelations confirmed he was assassinated by the Derg, likely strangled in his bed. In a final act of desecration, his body was hidden beneath the floorboards of a palace toilet. It wasn't until 1991, after the fall of the Derg, that his remains were discovered and finally given a dignified burial in 2000. A full 25 years after his death, the secrets of his tragic end were finally brought to light. The story of Haile Selassie is a brutal reminder that even the most powerful figures are vulnerable to the tides of change. An emperor, a prophet, a modernizer, whose tragic destiny still resonates today. His legacy is a complex tapestry of progress and repression, of international statesmanship and internal failures. He sought to unite a continent but struggled to hold his own nation together. What do you take away from his extraordinary journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this captivating story has left you wanting more, don't forget to subscribe for our next deep dive into the forgotten figures of history. Your engagement helps us bring these untold stories to light. Thank you for watching.